Are you algorithm aware? Do you
Am
know
I
what your
algorithm aware?
What does your algorithm say about
I'm
you?
sure this person's algorithm aware.
I think Lindsay's
No.
very busy.
Um, I would say yes. I mean, I'm the sort of person that my algorithm shows me all the facts. I'm a very facts-based person. I don't get
Oh yeah.
involved in all the emotional stuff online. And so I know a lot of facts about our algorithm, the term algorithm. It comes from a mathematician that was in the court of Baghdad in the 12th century. And he was called Al-Rizma because he was from a place in Uzbekistan.
And he had a lot of riz.
He had a lot of riz, yeah.
Yeah.
And algorithm at that time just meant actually an algebraic equation like x equals 1. It would be an algorithm. And it was only, obviously the word went from Arabic and then it got translated by the Renaissance mathematicians and became algorithm. But yeah, it still contained that meaning of what we currently consider to be just algebra. But then it was our guy, Alan Turing.
Did you? Oh.
Alan Turing changed really the meaning of algorithm to make it kind of programmatic, like it was a series of instructions that led to a particular goal. And that's what an algorithm came to mean, thanks to Alan Turing. Almost like a subroutine of a computer program.
Okay, so you're kind of aware of what the thing the algorithm is, but your own algorithm you think doesn't say a lot about you.
My own
Like
algorithm,
facts.
no, it does say a lot about me, but it's all facts. It's
All
facts, all the way down.
We've just been talking about. But are you sort of aware of your own algorithm? What do you think your algorithm says about you? Can you tell what your algorithm is?
Yeah, so my algorithm is lots of fashion history, lots of hats lately, lots of interior design. It's quite nice because it's really interesting because I would say like I'm quite a... Yes, we are. Talking about my algorithm and how it's full of like fashion and hats. I would say that I'm quite a political person, and yet my algorithm tends to be quite just like nice, pretty things.
Okay.
But then I think since Trump became president of my country, it's now like a combination of both like... It's a combination now of both like fashion history and like random like, 1950s dance sequences. It's now that plus a bunch of like lawyers making reels now about my rights in America and how they're changing, which is actually very useful. So I'm getting lots of things about like, oh, like when you go back to your country, make sure that that you're prepared to have your phone possibly checked, and like there's constant like things that are changing and happening in this in my country, that it's actually very helpful to actually get some kinds of like real hardcore advice about what my rights are. So a weird combination of stuff.
Okay, so there's maybe like what it says to you about a personality, but then maybe there's these kind of issues about rights as well. Like maybe what you've been searching might have some kind of political impact. Are we worried about how we might be read by our algorithm? Are we worried about how they might be used? By the way, this is TALKAOKE. Anyone in the room is free to join. Come and grab a seat. Tell us about what you think your algorithm says about you. Can you control your algorithm? What does Instagram show you when you go on the Explore page? But Mike, you might have had a point. It might not be about Instagram.
Not good what the Instagram shows me. But yeah, well, I've got two things. I mean, there's only three of us here, so it's up to us really where we want to take this. I'm quite interested to hear about, what America is like these days, because in a way, my algorithm is now is full of things about like how screwed, that's a better way of putting it, how screwed is America, and and it's just like one thing after another, but it's almost kind of like it's a very narrow range where it's kind of presenting it as like you don't want to go to this country. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of, that's what I'm getting. So I'm quite interested to hear what it's like from an actual citizen, how that feels, or I'm sure you're getting something different.
Brilliant. And we've got a few people watching the bar. This is TALKAOKE. It's a pop-up talk show. You guys are the VIP, so come and grab a drink. Come and join us around the table. We're kind of talking at the moment about what we think your algorithm says about you, but also how your algorithm changes from country to country, the political impacts, maybe how we can kind of fight against it or control it. But there was a request from Mikey for an American perspective.
Yeah. As a resident American citizen, I can say that no, also as an American, my algorithm is showing that America is a place that I don't want to live in, hence why I'm here. But I will say that right now, the thing that's most popular and like on the American algorithm is the plantation that, like the largest slave plantation that was standing in the U.S. burned down. And it's really interesting because I actually was doing an oral history project called Plantation Vacations, where I went around to 10 plantations that were like used for weddings and resorts, and that was a place that I visited. So now it's like a bunch of memes that are happening, and it's, yeah, really interesting. But I would say that at the beginning of 2025, it very much seemed like my country was literally on fire, because you had the California wildfires, and then you had like the AI images that were going around where they were like, oh, it's not bad enough to have like real images of California on fire. Let's also like make it look even worse than it actually is, even though it's already quite bad. And then on top of that, it was just like this constant just like flood of just like one horrible thing after the next, one source of anxiety. And I had to kind of stop looking at my social media for a little while because I just felt like I was in such a big apocalyptic mindset. And also I think it's really interesting that there's different platforms that show me different things. So my Instagram shows me the fashion, right? Am I right? But then if you go on like Twitter, for instance, I think like before Elon Musk turned it into X, my Twitter was very well curated based off of my own interests. So I'm a rare disease activist, so I was getting like lots of rare disease Twitter, and then lots of like academic Twitter. Now I'm seeing lots of things that I don't really want to see, but then I'm wondering like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because shouldn't I also want to break out of my echo chamber and see people that I might not necessarily agree with?
Okay, so like maybe Twitter used to be created, potentially slightly censored or curated towards you. Now you're breaking out of your echo chamber, but are you seeing things that you want? I mean, I'm curious, maybe at the bar, do you see things online that you don't like? They're a little bit shy. They'll come up. We'll change their algorithm.
It's all about the eye contact.
Eye contact.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's a fundamental, and this is quite a basic thing, but I think it needs to be said. There's a fundamental problem that we're all getting different feeds. It seems like a really good idea because I'm not that interested in hats or fashion, but it's actually massively problematic because I think as human beings, we can't conceive of, you know, when I think people looking at Instagrams, I think they're looking at like skateboarders and aeroplane things because that's what I get. And I just, although, yeah, I can factually say it now, it's very, very hard to think how different everybody, they're all walking around like zombies looking at their phones. They're looking at different stuff that, you know, pushes their own personal buttons. And I think that's really problematic because we are just now fractured as a society.
All right, so there's some kind of elements of the fact that, yeah, you can move this all you want. There we go. Some mic issues giving us anxiety. Yeah. So, do you think if you look at someone online, or someone in real life, do you think you can kind of tell what they look at online? I think there's maybe some kind of curious looks over the bar. Come and join us. This is TALKAOKE. It's a pop-up talk show. What do you get on your algorithm feed?
I get a lot of kind of like inspirational stuff, to be honest.
Oh, what kind of inspirational?
Basically, just a million Stephen Bartlett videos is what I get served. He's pretty good.
Great. And are you happy about that? Are you happy about what you see on your algorithm?
Generally, yeah, actually. Yeah, we're quite experts in this world, actually.
You're experts in this world.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, specifically TikTok algorithm.
Let us know your name.
Joe.
Joe. We got Mikey over here. We got Lindsay over here. We've got.
Wow.
Matilda, come and join us as well. We've been talking about algorithms, what you see on your own feed, and you said you mentioned that you are an expert in this field in TikTok specifically. Can you tell us more? How are you an expert in the field?
We kind of lead the way with a lot of brands on TikTok, so yeah, press the sound effect.
Little TikTok.
So we basically work with brands on. We have like 40 odd brands that we work with on TikTok to essentially get it into your algorithm. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
And this is Chi.
And it's Chi. Hello, welcome. Come and grab a table. Come and grab a chair, in fact. This is TALKAOKE. It's a pop-up talk show.
There's a chair. He's got it.
We've got some algorithm experts here, which is quite exciting. Specifically working with brands, am I right?
Brands, yeah.
Fantastic. We had Lindsay over here talking about what she sees on Instagram. It's very kind of fashion, rights-based. Twitter, X has now become very different to how it used to be. Mikey, you kind of have a point about some of this.
No, it's just in the world that I do a lot of work with young people, with just with young people. But the problem that youth workers are finding is that the way to communicate with young people is through TikTok, but nobody that works for the youth services, this is in lots of different boroughs, knows, they don't have the keys to that particular castle. So it's almost like they feel dissociated now with the young people because they don't know how to use TikTok effectively to communicate, what's going on in the borough, what other young people are concerned about. We do a lot of work with kind of young people's voice activation, but it's very, very hard because we don't know how to use TikTok.
Okay, and then, but presumably we have some experts who do know how to use TikTok, know how to use the algorithm. I'm going to go for this point over here, but then I'm kind of curious to hear about a bit like how it works, what an algorithm means to you two, perhaps.
Yeah, no, I'm also curious to know because I'm Gen Z, so I thought that like it's supposed to be baked into my DNA to know how to use TikTok, and then when I first opened it, I had absolutely no idea it's almost like it has like a language of its own in a sense. Like there's certain kinds of trends I didn't understand. I needed like onboarding. But then like the more that I started to, I guess curate my algorithm, I realized there's so many different kinds of TikToks and everyone kind of has their own like TikTok universe that they exist in. There's literally like some TikToks where you go on in the middle of the night and someone's just like doing a live stream of them like painted with glow in the dark paint and we all talk to each other and it's really calming and they play like in the background. And then there's a kind of TikTok where like literally there's teachers that are doing like live streams and helping kids study for exams. And so there's so many different kinds of versions, but I guess it's about trying to figure out like what's the best, is it finding the best formula that helps people, get that engagement in the following? I'd love to hear from the experts.
Okay, I've got some experts on the table. I'm going to go over here.
Yeah, so ironically, I'm not an expert. I just work with Joanna, but I am an avid TikTok user. Mm-hmm. My girlfriend likes a thing called Labubu's.
Explain what Labubu's is.
Labubu is a little Chinese doll.
Yes.
The company's worth 3 times more than Barbie right now. It's exploded. It's the biggest toy company in the world. Mm-hmm. And yeah. And since I brought it up once on my feed, now it's everywhere on my feed, and I can't get rid of it. So yeah, but it's incredible how much information you get from TikTok now. Now I get 50% of my news from TikTok, and whatever TikTok says is kind of the truth. So.
Whatever TikTok says is kind of the truth. You've heard it here first, and you had a point that you wanted to add onto Lindsay's sort of topic about kind of like multiplicity of TikTok, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like, I'm pretty sure the stat is like TikTok basically needs you to be served 100 videos in order to understand like what you'll engage with. And usually once you get past those 100 videos, it will then continue to entertain you. And I think the key thing to remember about TikTok specifically is that everyone thinks it's a social media, but like I personally would never follow my friends on TikTok. Like I'd rather not. I'd rather block them. It's kind of just like, yeah, I guess like when you think about Instagram, it's very much like, you follow your friends, you watch what they're doing, you watch their stories, you like their photos, and generally it probably makes you feel worse about your day. Where TikTok, it's imagine like if Netflix was just on your phone, but you were scrolling every 10 to 15 seconds, so it's like highly engaged. And that's why TikTok is so powerful, because it's serving you content, it's learning about you, whether you stop the scroll, and we look at something called thumb stop ratio. So when you're trying to make things go viral, the first 2 to 3 seconds is like what you call the hook, And then there's different things throughout that video that can mean that a person engages and retains on that video longer. And if you look at someone like the top creators in the world, like Mr. Beast, they analyze like every single bit of their video. So like, why did people drop off after, you know, the first 60 seconds? Like, what was that? And I remember the most intriguing thing he ever said on social media advertising and like content creation was that if he created a video in like basically a universal language, so like not English, like nothing, just no words, it went miles more viral, like 10x, 100x. Yeah, and that's, the running one, yeah.
Okay, so maybe TikTok without your friends better, TikTok without language, potentially more viral. There's a key hook with 2 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I find it really interesting what you said actually about TikTok also being used as kind of like news. So I have some friends in Poland, and they were basically saying that, especially with what's been happening in Ukraine, they said that they know some people in Russia, for instance, that were using TikTok as a way to kind of like get access to certain kinds of information that was being censored in their country. And then also my friends in Poland were like, yeah, I'm also like, you know, using TikTok to kind of like see what kinds of information other countries are getting. And they were kind of using it as a way to kind of like diversify their news that they were receiving. So it's a really interesting kind of unconventional, I guess, use for it. And I find it really interesting because we tend to, I think, like look at social media as something that's quite like useless, quite, you know, I don't want to like, is it trivial is the word, or like, you know, like a very surface level. Yeah, something that doesn't really have any substance. But actually, that's not necessarily always the case. It can actually be used for good.
So yeah, can social media be used for good? Can it spread this kind of information in a positive way? Are there drawbacks to it?
Lots of questions.
Lots of questions.
Yeah.
But you're in charge, so you can go with whatever one.
People just ask a question, but then you just answer the question you actually want to ask.
Fair. I'm gonna go for that. Yeah. No, I think it can definitely be used for fun, and I think it can definitely also be used for good, and everything. And well, like you were saying, spread news in places where it's hard to get news and so on. But then there's also obviously the opposite of that going on, which is where it gets tricky. Because
I've got a point over here. Maybe.
Well, no, I find it a bit scary that the first 2 to 3 seconds is important because, you know, who can get their shit together in 3 seconds? Do you know what I mean? It's like our videos are normally about 180 minutes long. And the first 3 seconds is just us twiddling with all the knobs and trying to get the sound right. Do you know what I mean? So we're lost, basically. Mind you, not that we get huge amounts of views, but do we want to live in a world where you're judged in 2 or 3 seconds?
I might turn it back. Do we want to live in a world that you're judged in 2 or 3 seconds? And I guess also the theme tonight is also a little bit around misinformation as well. So I'm interested to see what people think about this idea of misinformation and hooking people in, making news entertaining. I've got a point over here, and I've got some nods over here as well. So I'm going there next.
Yeah, I just remembered something about what Americans see on social media, and then also in terms of like the kinds of information that we and like the kinds of narratives that we were exposed to. So after TikTok was like briefly banned in America for like 24 hours, and then came back. It was really interesting because I think it was on Threads. There were conversations where Americans were like showing screenshots, and they're like, "I'm looking up certain things, and I'm not getting results on TikTok anymore." So they're looking up things like, Donald Trump election rigged, or they were looking up things like Elon Musk Nazi salute, and they were getting no results. Or they were being told like, we're not really sure that's accurate. Have you tried checking your facts? But meanwhile, people in other countries were looking at the exact same thing, and they were actually getting results. So it's really, that's just interesting.
We've got some nods over here. Sinister music.
Well, let's go into the conspiracy theory. No, it's quite interesting, like even with politics and stuff, where where it goes, where you go into like stuff like fluoride in water and stuff, all these things we kind of take for granted as being true. We don't know if these things are true or not anymore, and it's very hard to differentiate the truth from anything else at all. But I can't remember what your question was.
It's an open question. Go with what you want. I mean, do you
Yeah.
think it's a good thing that we're doubting and questioning a lot of things?
To your point about judgment, I think everyone's kind of judged anyway when you meet someone in the first 3 seconds anyway. So you're kind of it's not that dissimilar, and yeah, I don't know. It's just there's lots of judgments you place on everyone. So I think yeah, it's good to just not take judgment personally and just kind of live without judgment anyway. So.
I mean, are brands aware of this? This is a slightly pointed question, but everyone else can dive in as well. Are brands aware of how they're being judged and how do they want to be judged?
Yes, I think the interesting thing about TikTok is obviously TikTok Shop, which got launched a couple of years ago now, and we've been kind of at the forefront of that. And the interesting thing that we do is like we force virality and trends through strategies. So like we can basically gift a load of a brand's products to, let's say, like 200 to 300 affiliates on the platform. They all follow the same script. So, for example, we've just done one recently with a collagen, type 2 collagen. And like you would think, well, what is type 2? What is type 1? What is type 3? So most collagen you take is type 1 and 3, which is very good for you. And then what we did with this brand was basically said type 2 like supercharges your collagen intake, and it actually does, to be fair. But we probably did like put it a bit further along the spectrum, and that went viral and like sold hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of units on TikTok. So that was essentially creating a trend around like type 2 collagen, which like people didn't even know existed. So you can do a lot of that, but like talking about the actual like how brands are seen, the interesting thing we see a lot of is that and we have like a client who got cancelled recently, and like, it's a huge thing of like cancel culture and bully culture on TikTok, where one small thing you do wrong or can be misconstrued, like you can be completely cancelled like very, very easily. So
What happened? Yeah. Mikey asking the question for the whole table there.
So basically this brand was copied by another brand, so like all the packaging, everything, it was extremely close. And then the brand decided to post, who are quite big, decided to post a video on TikTok about this brand and the fact that like, you have IP as a brand, and you try really hard, you fail, you learn, you spend a load of money. And then this brand basically just copied all that learnings and were like being defamatory towards like the original brand that launched. And she did a video about it, the founder, and got absolutely like slated by everyone else. And like, you're bullying a small brand, you're doing this, you're doing that. And actually when you break it down, that person's just like ripped off her products, done them for half the price, and basically trying to steal market share. And she's just addressing that, like, at least create your own designs, at least be like original. Don't copy my brand name and like basically product names and everything. But it was interesting, like there's loads of influencers now who are like teaming up against this brand because like they're the big person really, and they want to basically take revenue away from them. So
it's sort of almost like a kind of TikTok gladiator style fight.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Based on virality. We've got a new face at the table, so I'm going to do a quick round of names. Just tell us your name.
I'm Jenny.
Jenny?
Matilda. Lindsay.
Chi.
Joe.
Mikey.
Hello, and I'm Evie. This is TALKAOKE. We've got 5 minutes before we're going to send you down to the depot for Act 1 of tonight. So this is just kind of like your amuse-bouche for the evening. So we've been talking about algorithms. We've been talking about what it says about you. We've talked about virality. We've been talking about responsibility. Mikey has a point, and then we'll do like a quick round of final thoughts, I think.
No, I just wanted to say we will be back. This isn't the main TALKAOKE. This is just a warm-up, but we will be back a bit later in the evening when your head will be full of thoughts. And actually, TALKAOKE is a great way to sort of sort out what you actually really think about it, because it's not that obvious always. But yeah, no, to me, it's like, I don't know if I want to get involved in this TikTok world or not. I don't really feel that I need type 2 collagen. Maybe I do. I don't know. It doesn't. There's nothing in there that attracts me to it apart from it would be an effective way to communicate with young people, and But apart from that, there's nothing really draws me in, I've got to say.
Okay, so it's a tool. It's maybe an unappealing tool, but you're interested in it because you work with young people and you center, so you kind of want to understand young people. Well, have we got any thoughts on the conversation so far that we want to jump? I don't know. Anyone want to add on to anything of that?
I think like it's interesting that everyone thinks TikTok's for like 18 to 24-year-olds. I remember this Christmas I came home and my stepmom had basically, like, I looked around the house and there was like one viral product, another viral product, another viral product. And I was like, what are you doing? She's like, my dad was like, oh yeah, she used to be addicted to Amazon, but now she's addicted to TikTok Shop. And I was like, mental. And literally like everything, the games we were playing, like the cushions we were sitting on, like everything was like TikTok basically. And she's like, I don't know, 50. And there's a huge growing audience like in the older audience. And basically what we're seeing now is that like it's not just like social media and young people doing dances anymore. It's so much like greater than that, and it's essentially like YouTube on steroids. So, but you can definitely like to raise awareness of anything, whether that be a product, whether it be like a new app, whether it be a trend or like a charity or like anything that you do. Like, it's the easiest platform to reach like new people, in my opinion.
There you go. From Joe, who is a TikTok expert. So,
Well, I think it's just all about
not misinformation.
storytelling, and I think that's what when I go on TikTok, I like is just the stories that you read about, whether it's someone starting a new business and they've gone through 3 months of pain, kind of setting up the color of the walls or whatever they've tried to determine as what they really wanted as their passion. And I find that really exciting when I hear about all the different stories and stuff about people doing different things. And yeah, and then 3 hours of your life is taken up.
Okay, so a lot of passions, but also maybe your time is taken away. Final thoughts.
Yeah, no, I completely agree about that time suck, because I feel like I'll be like, okay, I'm just gonna just glance at TikTok for a second, and the next thing you know, it's 2 hours later, and then you feel really bad about your life. But I would say that, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with the fact that there can be, you know, some positive uses of social media. I recently discovered like French TikTok. It's a great way to like learn a new language as well through comedy. But I will say that I think earlier someone mentioned something about how we're all kind of curating our own different realities, and we're all living in a separate reality from the other person. And I think that when it starts to, you know, considering the fact that social media is such a, you know, a classic way to now radicalize people, that's something that we should actually be really concerned about, because we have very different ideas of what is real, and that's scary.
Okay, so diverse to the point that it's actually changing our notions of reality. We are doing final thoughts before we send people to the depots. I'm going to final thought Matilda over here.
Yeah, I think it's both a bit like that these first 3 seconds of TikTok like videos and everything, that they're so important, but that they easily turn into 3 hours. That's the scary thing, I think, and you don't really remember.
TikTok, good for shopping, bad for your time.
I have like a unique experience. I'm not on TikTok, but I am on Instagram with the Reels, and for me, there was a lot when I was immediately postpartum after I had my child, that like Instagram Reels made my postpartum depression tangibly worse, because every decision I was making, I was second guessing myself, because I would make a decision and then I'd get a reel magically that was like, this is the reason why that like decision you just made is the worst thing you could ever do for your baby. So I think that there's ways where it can like really start to affect your mental health, like in the real world too, if you're not careful. So.
Thank you. That's a good, a deep final thought to finish on. I know it's been a compressed TALKAOKE for you two. We're just doing final thoughts before we send everyone to the depot, because it is 6:30. Any final thoughts about TikTok, algorithms, time?
In moments of algorithms mayhem, stay tuned and stay peace, and also be connected to the vibes and to the atmosphere.
Okay, this might be a hint of what is happening on later on in the show. Who knows? Any final thoughts?
I really liked your point. I mean, in a way that, yeah, mental health can really kind of suffer as a result of looking at different reels. For the show that I was doing, I joined TikTok, and I made sure that my feed is filled with like masculine content, and it made sense in research. But then what I found myself watching so much Andrew Tate and related content, then I thought, you know what? he's got some good points. So yeah, I mean, exposure over time can actually may surprise you in how you think about stuff.
Okay, so it's a corrosive exposure over time.
I mean, they used to say you are what you eat back in the 80s, but now it's maybe you are what you consume on.
Real.
Yeah, you are. I don't know what. Yeah. Someone's got to come up with a. You are what you. You are what you feed. I don't know, something like that. But we'll come up with that by 9:30. We'll come up with exactly what that is.
But in the meantime, that was just a little taster of TALKAOKE. We are now sending you downstairs, going down the stairs with your lovely drinks to the depot for Act 1 of tonight's entertainment. Then come and find us in the TALKAOKE table later. But first of all, thank you for coming to join. We're about to start anyway, so I'm just going to put this on here. We're going to start the music. There we go. Hello everyone, welcome to TALKAOKE. It's a pop-up talk show. You guys are the VIPs, you're the guests. Come and grab a seat, get involved. My name's Evie, and yeah, the idea of tonight is that we're just talking about kind of like algorithms, misinformation, kind of what people are doing to try and change that algorithm. I mean, are you kind of aware of what your algorithm is?
I don't think I'm necessarily aware of what my algorithm is, but I also think that there's a good and bad to it. So, say for instance, I'm looking for a solution. I'm quite happy to be sold a solution if it works. But I'm also very aware that I can be led, should we say on a financial standpoint, of a solution that seems on the face of it good, but could actually become bad, if that makes sense. Like, it doesn't actually do the job. It's just that from a desperation point of view, I'm looking for a solution that I need.
You think your algorithm maybe senses when you're in need?
Oh, absolutely, and I think that it responds to that maybe demand of like.
Sun key change. Come on, grab it. We can give you a really compressed TALKAOKE experience. Do you know what your? I'm curious though, because a lot of people were talking about earlier what their algorithm, what their explore page says about them. Do you know what your explore page says about you? Your For You page, I think is official.
I don't think my For You page though represents me as what I think as a person, but I also watch some like true crime, things like that. So people might think that I'm a bit like, you know, yeah. Like I go to sleep watching like true crime podcasts. Yeah. But for example, like I actually like the fact that the algorithm then recommends me a new podcast. Okay. So I actually quite like that. Whereas if it was going to, respond to me, I don't know, a love podcast, that wouldn't work for me.
I'm curious. What do you think your algorithm? Like, what does your For You page? Do you think it's representative of who you are? Come and grab a seat, guys.
Probably the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yes. Yes. So I should work on the ugly part. I don't know. No, it magnifies some of the worst aspects and some of the best, I suppose. No, there's stuff that I look at that I wouldn't perhaps I wouldn't share with everybody. Ooh, okay. Right.
So maybe there's a sense that to porn, but potentially there might be things about come and grab a seat, guys. This is TALKAOKE. It's a pop-up talk show. We're kind of talking about are we self-aware about our own algorithm? What the kind of things that are pushed to us online. Do we feel that they're reflective? Thank you very much. Come grab a card if you want to find out more about us. Yeah. Do you feel like the things that you get pushed online? Do you think they're representative of you as a personality?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
The things that you are like pushed by your algorithm that you see online, do they feel like they represent you?
I would say yes, because then like people I follow, accounts I follow, I try to be as selective as I can be. So I follow people or like content that make me happy. So whether that can be like just silly animal videos. Because sometimes it can be positive as well. And I think like something that I always keep at the back of my mind is that the comment section, this is where the things happen. Because then you can, this is always a choice whether you interact or not. And Jamie was talking about engagement, and I think that like these platforms, they're trying to engage with you. So like comments, likes, or subscribing is all keeping you engaged. And sometimes like you want to react to something, you want to connect with some people, but then sometimes it just brings you down to the rabbit hole.
Quite a lot actually there about, you want to, we like to think that maybe TALKAOKE is like the real life comment section, but like a nice version, I'm going to say. So there's some good parts about, but actually maybe the human parts are maybe the worst in some respects. I think Lindsay had a point, and then we had a point over here. Before can we get a quick round of names as well?
Esther.
Lindsay.
Jenny.
Jenny, perfect. I'm Evie. Come and grab a seat at the table. This is TALKAOKE. If you want to talk about algorithms, how to change them, if any of you got some Q&As at the talk just now and you're like, what was going on? I've got lots to say. Come and grab a seat around the table. But Lindsay, you had a point, so we're going to go over here.
Yeah, I found it really interesting because Jamie was mentioning that more recently X has been kind of like intentionally pushing more provocative things that we may disagree with, just to kind of like get that emotional arousal going and get that engagement. And I find there's a really big difference between now like the X algorithm and then for instance like Threads, which is like a really overwhelming just like chain of things that I agree with, and it's very good at like, oh, I saw you liked that post, let me show you just 100 more that are exactly like that one. And it's like, it's almost like the conversation is the exact same thing. So if you look at something like, the first thing at the top of my head is the biggest remaining slave plantation in the US burned down. I look at one meme about that, next thing you know, everything in Threads, you think the whole world is only talking about the slave plantation, when someone that I was sharing a table with earlier said he hadn't even heard that happened. But the one disappointing thing, though, is that X, or Twitter, I used to use Twitter. I'm a rare disease activist. And the rare disease space is very international and very scattered around the world. And so to find each other for patients, for researchers, I would actually do a lot of networking. So I did an educational session at Cambridge University Hospitals, and they found me through Twitter. And all of a sudden, like ever since Elon Musk took over, I've completely lost my community, and we cannot find each other, and there are patients who cannot find their communities and cannot be connected to those, clinician researchers. So there's a lot to be lost as well. And also, my friend here called it back when everyone was like, Elon Musk is amazing, he's the best. She was like, no, he's a scam.
Yeah, I saw a lot of nods earlier. Is that linked to it?
Well, so, Lindsay and I do know each other already, just for the record. When I saw about the plantation burning down, I thought of you immediately, and I was going to tell you about it.
That plantation. I researched that plantation.
And this is a plantation in America that's
Yes.
burned down, and it's had a lot of rules. Obviously, it was a site of slavery.
Yes. And
it's also being reused as a resort
and wedding destination. So like basically I did a research thing called Plantation Vacations. So I was trying to understand why there's only one slave plantation in the US that's dedicated to the memory of the enslaved. Everything else is used for like, Gone with the Wind cosplay, weddings, including Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, and resorts where they would sometimes convert slave cottages into luxury accommodation. I went to Nottoway Plantation, which is quite bloated and very flammable, so I'm not surprised that it burned down. And I was so infuriated by that tour that was actually the last plantation out of 10 that I visited, because I was so enraged. And then the ancestors kind of took over.
And you had a point that you were saying earlier as well.
well, when I saw it, I immediately went to message you about it, and then I looked and you had already posted about it, and I'm like, maybe we'll do. But as far as Elon Musk goes, before he bought X, before he started getting involved in the U.S. government, I've been ringing the alarms about Elon Musk since 2013. And what happened with that was, I'm an engineer right now. I am an engineering PhD student. I teach undergrads at Cambridge. But I also, this is when I was doing my undergrad degree, and it was when he first proposed this Hyperloop thing on like, oh, this is going to like reinvigorate, like, it's going to be faster public transportation. And what I knew is, one, there were already talks about expanding the rail service in America at the time, and he started getting into the space. But the second thing I know, he targeted the engineering schools in America and said, well, rather than my company doing a Hyperloop, I'm going to open up a contest. And whatever engineering teams come up with this, you'll be the ones that design the Hyperloop. And when I looked at the terms and conditions of it, I was like, oh, every submission that he gets is going to be his intellectual property. So that's when I started raising the alarm bells about, like, this guy is very good at seeming like an ideas guy, but he actually doesn't have anything. So that's where it's at. But back to the original question about algorithms. Like I said, I'm an engineer, so I, in theory, do know how they work a little bit. And even I was shocked at, like, as my life changes, how much my algorithm changes. Like, Instagram knew I was pregnant before I was telling other people. Instagram knew the struggles I was having with breastfeeding and baby sleep and formula and the guilt that I felt about it, because, yeah, that was the stuff that I was engaging with, but also it's like, you know, you follow one person and it begets more feeds, and then you're like, oh, this person's made a good point, I'm gonna follow them, and like more gets trickled. So I think that I'm aware that my For You page looks very different than other people's. I think it does reflect my life, but I will also say, like, it's also hard to break out of that because I might want to get more diverse thoughts in there, but at the same time, it's like the diversity, and I think they were talking about this, like, the diverse opinions that I get exposed to are so infuriatingly, like, how could anybody think this? It's that, like, sort of rage bait. So it was interesting when Jamie was talking about how echo chambers are also being fed, like, the worst of the other side a little bit. That resonated with me for sure.
Yes, I'm curious, because that was one of the questions at the end of the talk as well, was what happens when you do see things that you disagree with online? And I'm curious, do you have those kind of reactions? You said earlier your experience of social media is fairly positive, maybe not the comment section, but yeah, how do you react when you see things that maybe challenge you online?
I've had some dark moments as well on social media, so I just have to stop myself from, like, just engaging with other people, you know. But yeah, I think because, like, when we're online, we're just putting a mask, you know, behind our online identity. And when you're really, you know, engaging with real people in real life, then you see their perspectives a little bit more. And that's something that, you know, like, maybe something online cannot change. Like, for sure, we are having technology and having Zoom calls, you know, Teams call, but to really understand someone, that still requires some human level of empathy. And yeah, I think you mentioned about being very extreme, being, you know, like, you only see the worst side of some people, and I think that is absolutely true. And this attention thing about this attention on social media is only showing you maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes of content max, and it's just not enough. There's not enough to you know, base your beliefs on such a short period of information.
The short form media is actually bad for your critical thinking. I mean, do you agree with this? Are videos maybe stopping your critical thinking, video-based media? I had a hand up over here. Yeah.
Well, it was not to your question, if that's okay. It was to something else that you said about the fact that there's, I guess, like, what we see online is not fully like a full representation of the nuance of a person that we might meet in real life. And unfortunately, though, like, the person that we meet online is who we end up often engaging with and then judging people off of. But I've actually experienced the reverse of this. So I'm from the deep south in the US, and so I'm very much used to, I guess, kind of tying into yesterday's theme of talking across the divide. I grew up with lots of people who were very conservative, actually, and I was very good at developing, you know, quite healthy relationships with people who held different viewpoints. Of course, that was back when viewpoints were about fiscal policy and not whether or not someone should exist. Yeah, so it's changed a bit. But it was really sad because I remember around 2016, back, like, on Facebook, when I was following, you know, like, my old teachers and my old classmates, there were people who were really, you know, people that I looked up to, that I trusted, people that I thought were just the definition of just being a really sweet, good, decent, kind person. And they started posting, like, memes that were, you know, really racist towards black people. I had, like, my chorus teacher posted something really horrible about, like, police police brutality, and like Trayvon Martin, and we got into like a little comment section argument together, and I had lots of like former friends as well who were telling me like, no, you're delusional, you're completely delusional, and I tried to have a conversation with them and it was just not happening. So it kind of like is the reverse version of that, where you used to know someone for years, and then all of a sudden, just through like a little bit of social media, like negative engagement and sharing, all of a sudden it's almost like you become flattened into something quite horrible.
I like that. So yeah, I mean, is this an experience that other people have had, that actually by being online, people that you thought you knew kind of change? We've got a new face at the table and potentially a point as well. So first of all, tell us your name and then let us know what you think.
My name's Claire, and I never caught the whole. I've just arrived and I just heard the end piece of what you said, but I don't know what to say at the moment. Give me a minute.
That's all right. Come and join the table, guys. This is TALKAOKE. It's a pop-up talk show. You guys are the VIP. We've kind of just been talking a little bit about what's been going on in the room over there. Claire, did you have a point you wanted to add, or?
Not at the moment. Just let me think about what's been said.
That's all right. We've got a new face at the table as well. Most importantly, but whilst you get your drinks order in, what's your name?
Sheila.
Sheila?
Esther. Lindsay.
Jenny.
Claire.
And I'm Evie. This is TALKAOKE. Come and join us. But yeah, we started off talking about what the algorithm of what we see online says about us, and then we kind of meandered about a few things of what we see online. What do we trust it? This kind of short form videos. Come back. Also Sheila, come and grab a seat, Sheila. And then we actually talking about people that we think we know online start to maybe share things that we really ultimately disagree with, might be quite harmful towards us. I mean, has anyone had similar experiences around the table?
Yeah, so I've had that sort of situation before on people that I thought I knew, and then I would see them commenting what I felt like were very just like misinformed takes, or I think this is going to be for better or for worse, the context that Lindsay and I are coming from is probably going to be quite American-centric, but also talking about police brutality against Black Americans, and the way that I think in some ways social media did enable a lot of people who didn't have firsthand experience to see that. And see that reality, but in other ways, there were times where I would have like cousins who I'm not very close with, but I'm friends with on Facebook, would comment things like, you'd see a police officer going into a high school classroom and, I mean, it was brutal, throwing a Black teenager who was 14, 15, a teenage girl, on the floor, and I saw this person, white cousin of mine, of course, saying, well, she shouldn't have swiped towards him. And I said, if somebody's coming at you with their hands, you're not going to put your arms up to try to, that's not going to be your instinct. And it's like, well, not if it's a police officer. And I'm like, sorry, are we allowed to curse? Okay, well, it's just, it's absolutely bullshit. Of course you'd put your arms up. Of course you would. But the difference is that cousin would not be in that situation that teenage girl was. And her crime was sassing her teacher, who among us hasn't been sassy when they were 14. And I think that something that was so shocking to me was the inability to even bridge that sort of we're not, we see the same video, but the takeaways that we're having from it, this is a factual thing. Now we even have the issue of AI generated videos and stuff. Are we even getting facts when we get these algorithms? I think that's another layer on it, because I think we already have such an issue with, we might be being fed true stories, but a very tinted view of that, so I don't know.
Yeah, so maybe it allows us to see a lot more things, experience a lot more things. But even then, when they're out there, actually people might react to it in a way that we disagree. I mean, how do people react, or how do people deal with disagreement that they have with friends, family members, online, in real life? How have you had those experiences, and how do you try and go about those kind of situations? Anyone?
Interact with people online. I realise I interact with people more at bus stops or on buses, and in taxis, talking to taxi drivers, and especially in Glasgow now, like from Ethiopia, the Congo. Some of the stories you get are quite. They make things more alive for you, especially some of the stories you hear. I mean, there's people that haven't seen their brothers or sisters for like 15 years. They might go back to Pakistan and try and they hope, that they've been packed in the back of a lorry and arrived in Scotland or something, like 14 years old. There was another, a Congo taxi driver who was on the phone to his brother-in-law, and they were out looking for the nephew, and there'd been 13 deaths in that community, and it was to do with organ harvesting. And like there's films, the Stephen Frears films and stuff, but when you hear it from someone real, so that I'm not as, I think I'm fortunate in using buses and things like that, because I don't know how, I don't do online, so in that way I don't think I could contribute to that, that conversation.
So your sort of social media is kind of real life media, just chatting to people and trying to connect with people.
Most people have cars, a lot of people are quite, I think, snobbish even going in public transport, or they just haven't, they've grown up with cars. But it's always interesting to talk to taxi drivers because they're all over the world, from at the moment, and just people. And I don't look to online. I do Duolingo online. I wake up.
Duolingo is your social media. That's as digital as you get.
I do Russian and then.
Oh, I'm going to pause you there. Before you leave the TALKAOKE table, we will ask you for a final thought to leave us with. It could be a new topic of conversation. It could be a reflection on the things we've talked to tonight. But just a final thought from you.
Okay. I think we are, in some ways, in a better place than we were 2 years ago in these conversations, in that I think that there are things, like I said, being an engineer and seeing these things develop, that I've been trying to sound the alarm on for a while. And I am encouraged that I see a lot more people having that conversation and being aware of it and noticing. In some ways, I think that's really good and powerful that we can change our own behaviors. And I do wonder I don't think that the corporations are going to fix it on their own, so I'm curious as how people think, how can we collectively change our own behaviors and stuff to kind of sway things in a new direction. So, all right.
That's a perfect TALKAOKE movie there, leaving us with a question. How can we challenge this kind of conflict? I've got a point over here. Before I go, any thoughts over on this side of the table? We've got some new faces at the table. Any new thoughts to go with them?
I really resonated with what you were saying about the importance of speaking to strangers and people that I don't know very well, just chance interactions. I think that brings out the best of myself when I do that, and just the less time. I was just thinking, as someone else was saying, regardless of mis or disinformation, just the less information, the better, really. Because when you talk to someone in the shop or in a taxi, you're not really getting information. You're just being with them, or you're dialoguing with them. You're just all right, yeah, yeah, that was nice, wasn't it? You're not. It's not really information-laden speech. It's kind of actually, it's got some feelings in there. It's got some just sort of rituals, really. You're kind of doing little ritualistic things where you go, how are you? Oh no, yeah, weather's nice, yeah, and all that stuff. If you looked at like the sort of the type of communication we have, whether it's information or emotional or ritualistic or whatever it might be, it'd be anything we can do to like reduce the information and increase some of the other ones. I think it's really good. And it also makes me think of like smoking used to be seen as all right, as like not a problem health-wise, and let's say like phones are then used in the same shift happens with phones. Like what can we learn about the way that the transition happened with smoking and apply that to social media? Like it's almost getting to the point where, you know, if you've got your phone on the table in a social setting, that's verging on rude. Is it? I don't know. In some groups it might be. If it was, that would be, in my view, a positive thing. It's like, oh, it's a bit rude. You just got your phone on the table. You know what I mean? So, like you just sparked up a cigarette in front of someone. That would be like, what are you doing? And so, how can we get that same sort of like, oh, what, like that in relation to the phones? Because at the moment they're so I'll stop in a sec. In a moment, I didn't know I didn't really have anything to say. Like, yeah, so nothing much to say. But in the moment they're sort of glamorized, aren't they? And of course all the adverts are like, wow, washow, kawah, like that. Whereas we need them to be like, oh, sorry guys, really sorry, I've just got to, like slightly shamefully, like, oh, I'm really sorry, I just need to, oh, I'm sorry about that. That's what we need to feel about them, I think. It's like, that.
I mean, no, I think those two great points. So the problem is not disinformation or misinformation, it's just too much information, full stop. And then also this idea of like, actually we should treat our smartphones with the kind of same kind of, I don't know, maybe moral, social acceptability that we did with smoking. We all managed to say, that's a bit rude. And I like that. I'm not supposed to say what my opinion is on the table, so I've already made a TALKAOKE mistake. But I've got a point from Lindsay over here. We had some nods over here, so I'm going to go over here and then test.
Yeah, I mean, I really agree with you. I would say that maybe about like 7, maybe 10 years ago, I would have lots of conversations with friends. Like, you know, we make plans to intentionally meet up in person to connect with each other, and I'm watching them just scroll on Instagram, and I got really frustrated because there was a point where, and I don't know if it's because I was, you know, because of my age or what, but I could not even have a connection with some of my friends unless I actually engaged with them and went like, oh yeah, that influencer said that, oh wow, that's so funny. And I got really just like, there was no substance, and then I felt like our relationship started to feel very just like surface level and trivial. And as I've gotten older, I've noticed that now people intentionally, if your phone is out, you won't just have it on the table, you'll turn it over, screen down. And it is seen as quite rude. And if someone has to check their phone, they'll be like, oh, sorry. But I wanted to get back to your question about, you know, how do you handle having disagreements online, in person? I would say that my therapist said that I weaponize my intellect. And so I realized they're right, because if I have a disagreement with someone, my first instinct is to throw a syllabus at them. And I used to do it all the time, especially when I was in undergrad, where I'd be like, oh, like, you know, read like bell hooks, and you know, and no one would, it didn't work. I'm sure it did not work. I don't think anyone was actually like, oh, you know, this stranger on the internet just sent me the syllabus. Let me actually, you know, go on this database and read something from JSTOR. But for some reason, there is also, I cannot deny that there's this kind of pleasure in feeling like, oh yeah, but I know exactly what I'm talking about. I have receipts, I have facts, so, you know, there's something about being right. But was it effective? Was I getting through to the other person? No. And when it comes to talking, I think, like, face-to-face with the person and having a disagreement, I very much am concerned about upsetting the other person, especially if it's someone that I care about. When I have very different values with people who are my friends on things that I actually do care about, I start to feel more like I want to just avoid the conversation altogether, or I'll try to kind of like tiptoe around the discussion, and then eventually I get to the point of just completely just like disengaging, which kind of reminds me of the Act 1 from yesterday. And then when it comes to online, I feel like when I was younger, I would definitely get into comment section fights and think that like, I just own that person. I said something very witty and clever. And again, where did it get me? And I started to just get exhausted. Like, and now I won't engage in this kind of discourse unless I feel like, okay, am I actually contributing to something here? If I engage with this person on this kind of conversation, could I actually, potentially get somewhere with them and, like we can reach some kind of consensus and make some kind of, make some kind of progress? Or are we just airing out our frustrations and digging a hole?
Do people have similar or different experiences? And before we do, we've got some new faces at the table. Let us know your names.
Matthew.
Jonah.
Fantastic. Yeah, so is this something we agree with? Are people getting in fights online? How do you resolve them if not? Or are you an avoider? Do you just trying to not tackle the question?
I'm definitely an avoider. Because I don't think that my voice online is going to contribute anything. Because I know that the algorithms are stacked in such a way that I'm just contributing to noise, and I don't think that my interjection is going to solve anything. I would rather behave authentically in personal interactions. Rather than, so I eschew the online debate constantly.
Any thoughts over here?
I just don't get into it. I don't really go on social media that much, and I made a conscious decision a few years ago just to try and meet the people in my local community and volunteer and do shit near my house.
So how do you do that? What are you getting involved in?
We cook in a shelter in Hackney. And then for a while we were building a community garden, but yeah, I just gave up on looking at other people doing shit online. Then I got this job at Sage and Jester, and I was like, fuck, I better pretend I'm on social media all the time.
Fantastic. Okay, so actually maybe rejecting social media until it's an employment prospect, and then you kind of you do engage in kind of some.
I started a Substack feed, which is the most depressing thing that I think I've ever pulled together in my life. It actually made my Instagram feed look, it's quite informative, but yeah, it makes me want to stock all sorts of things I never considered stocking before in my cellar. So yeah, I'm not sure it's that healthy.
Okay, great. So there's maybe, I'm not sure if that's an endorsement of Substack or just a mentioning of a different social media or kind of media platform. I'm curious, we haven't, I'm interested in what you were saying earlier about kind of actually just like, it was kind of linked to what you were saying about like actually just the sheer amount of information is just kind of overwhelming, and that's almost why you're trying to disengage with it. Esther, I know that you were nodding a lot when we had the point about actually it's not the problem, it's misinformation or disinformation, it's too much information. Did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost unavoidable because we're living in an information age, and we always have this FOMO, like this, like Lindsay was mentioning about threads. I actually had threads for maybe a few months, and I just had to delete it. It's like worse. For me, it's maybe worse than Instagram because you actually have to spend time and read the content because it's not images or videos that you can just scroll down. It's more text-based, or maybe it's a little bit like Twitter. So you have to actually understand what the people are saying. And then, like you said, I realized that they're always pushing the same similar form of content, and I just got so hooked at it, like I just had to delete it. Yeah, so I think it's very hard to avoid. And another funny story is like I remember moving to London probably 9 years ago, and my first impression of the London Underground is that everyone was not using their phone. They were like reading newspapers and books because like Underground is so deep that you don't get Wi-Fi. But nowadays it's changed. But I remember my first impression was, wow, people in London, they read a lot. That's such a good thing.
Okay, talking a little bit about actually your point about actually public transport being the best kind of social media, perhaps. So I might come back here. Lindsay, I know you had a point, and I'm going to go over here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting because that kind of overwhelm of information is really dangerous, actually. And that's something that I think a lot of people in the US are talking about, where they feel like they're just being inundated, but there's so many things that's to distract us that we completely forgot that we should still be angry that people infiltrated the Capitol. And it's almost like we're starting to wonder, is it kind of being used as a weapon to kind of just distract us from the things that actually matter? And then meanwhile, we were paying attention to, you know, like really, you know, relatively trivial things, the government or, you know, whatever kind of body of power was able to, like, you know, secretly pass this controversial bill last night, or, like, you know, they were actually able to get away with things because we were not paying attention. But also, I just wanted to acknowledge that I'm a hypocrite. I actually, even though I said I no longer get involved in comment sections, just recently I saw this one comment section and I was like, no, they need to learn from me. I can do something about this. And it was about, oh gosh, it was the latest, like, vampire film with, like, there was, like, lots of, like, with the Irish people and the sinners, and lots of people were angry because they're like, oh, like, I think it's Haley Steinfeld or whatever her name is. She is a white woman who discovered that she has part black ancestry, and in the film she basically played an octoroon, which was a white person who is 1/8 black if we're going by blood quantum. And people were saying, like, that's ridiculous, like, why would they have her in there? And then I was like, oh, let me just, like, you know, educate everybody about the history of race in America and, like, racial stratification and, like, blood quantum and, like, all this kind of stuff. And I recommended, like, passing by Nella Larson. I included, like, an anecdote about my great-grandmother who passed, and for some reason I thought I was making a difference. It did actually convince one person who was like, oh, you have a point there. Thank you for that. You just taught me something. But was it really worth me spending all that time throwing all that knowledge in there? You know what I mean? Yeah. No, I should have been reading a book. You have convinced someone.
Yes, I've been living at the cinema recently, and for different reasons, and the last 3 films have been Chinese, Tamil and Malayan, I think I told you, and it was like, the best thing about it was the audience. You know, like, there were families there at night and with their, you know, children, and it was so lovely to, I live in Glasgow, and it made me aware of the Tamil community and the Malaysian community that I never really, Glasgow's become very, very cosmopolitan now, you know, and you walk down the street, you can hear any accent or language or anything, but it was magic. I used to go and watch Chinese films because sometimes you don't see Chinese people outside of a casino or in a restaurant, perhaps, but there's all these beautiful young girls, and it's like dressed for your Sunday best in, you know, they've gone with their friends, or there's young couples, and there's a lovely laughter, and the Chinese are absolutely mad. I mean, they're fabulous, but some of the films are, you know, there was a Chinese Sherlock Holmes on recently, and the last film with Tamil and Malaysian, I mean, you did get death. I mean, you did get police beating up people, but nevertheless, the warmth of the characters and the humour, and sometimes when you read the news, this is it, when you read the news about other countries, and I used to think this about South Africa, you forget actually the beauty of a country, or you forget the very positive things, or the humour, or the warmth, and it sort of, it balances you a bit, because and another thing I was thinking of is I used to take the kids to Glastonbury to work in the morning. You'd work half the day. That was how you worked. And you didn't have anything. You know, like, you made your own fire, you got milk from the cow and stuff like that. Sorry. But it was to do with, but you felt so alive and you were so engaged. I couldn't live in the country unless I was working on the land. Right, yeah. I don't think I could do that. But again, it's like, and because you're busy, you don't think about what you're forgetting on the world basis, and yet you can feel quite helpless when you're reading the news all the time, and you feel, well, what can I do? I mean, you could send money, or you'd be in a protest group or something, but I don't, but certainly physical activity and actual natural intercourse, just with other people is like, that makes you feel alive in a way. But I mean, I can be on the phone overnight, like for 6 hours. If I start off on learning Russian and then I go off onto podcasts, they're about half an hour each, and it's like 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Fantastic. I mean, there was loads of stuff there. I know that I had a point in response. I'm just going to go straight over to Sheila.
You go.
Yeah. Nice.
Do you know just one thing? Often I can go to the cinema and it's like I've got my own private cinema. Like there's just me and, people obviously can get it on television now. But when you go with smaller communities and they're going to see their own films, it's different. It's like in the past, and it's more of an event. And I don't want that to die, because I love going to the cinema.
So finding community, finding connection through live events, through cinema. I'm going to go over here.
I love what you said there, because I feel like it used to be everyone wanted to be on telly, but now everyone just wants to be sitting in a cinema on their own, watching something on someone else. That is the new dream. I want to be sitting in a cinema on my own. Yeah, watching someone else on telly. Yeah, that's what I want.
We've got Esther, you have to go, so before you leave, please leave us with a final thought.
So I really like watching Black Mirror. It's one of my favorite shows. But then I think the message behind is not, well, depending on how you view it, you can see it as an opportunity to grow, and other people say, oh, that's so pessimistic. Oh my God, our future is doomed. But I think maybe the director, the writers, behind this message is just to make us realize that, we don't want to be like that. But then I'm still looking forward to a new season.
Thank you very much. That's a round of applause for Esther. There we go. Thank you. And I'm going to go for a point over here. I know you've been very patient.
Has anyone seen on the overground the stickers? It's on the tube as well. The stickers that say, "Have you spent enough time on your phone today?" Have you seen those? No, but you will, because they want to print some out and stick them on. Don't tell TFL. I haven't started yet.
You're doing it?
Anyone can. Yeah, I just made up the thing. Whoa! Yeah. Let's do it. So you go on, when I go on the overground or the tube, and I just see how many people are on their phone and what they're watching, and that dystopian feeling of everyone's looking, if aliens came down, and what the fuck's everyone doing? Literally looking at these squares of metal. And I think it's really depressing. And if you're feeling lonely, it's like extra, it's extra. But there's opportunities to speak to people all the time, and people want to talk. It's just there. That's the default. That's easy. People either looking to do their admin, or they're looking for not thinking, don't want boredom, scroll, and you see what people are scrolling on, and you see the expressions they've got, and it's it's not a joyful thing most of the time. And if they are joyful when they're watching it, you really fucking hate them, because look at you cackling inanely at the online world. But anyway, that's my own stuff to deal with.
Third is a smartphone. I'll go over here.
So 2 things. Have you ever seen, I can't remember his name, a photographer that took photos of people that just scrubbed out the images of phones, and the absolute absurdity and aloneness of everybody staring. Took photos of people in the street and just took all the photos of the phones out, and it just really hits home how utterly absurd this is, and how just everybody just there staring into nothingness. It's amazing. I cannot remember his name. I'm sorry. Yeah. And then I wanted to pick up on just something that you said about the absurd, the beauty of China and Chinese culture and everything. I am intrinsically linked to the United States of America through my work and my family, and it's a place that I love fucking dearly. In all of it's like, it's horrible what's going on at the moment, but it is such a deeply amazing place in so many ways, and there are people who are voting for awful, awful things, who are hoodwinked, who have such beautiful souls, and America, and I think we forget about that all the time, and I find that disappointing that this place that has given me my life and my family is traduced like this.
Lindsay, you had a point from earlier.
Yeah, I wanted to say something about the Black Mirror comment. Something that I really love about Black Mirror is that it's always asking like questions about what if. So basically, it takes certain kinds of, I mean, speculative fiction in general does this as well. But like, it takes something that it's currently, seeing in the world around us today, and then it asks us like, what if we took this and then it was kind of like blown up on a whole different, more dramatic scale. And then a few years later, you're actually seeing life imitating art, and you're seeing Black Mirror episodes where, in a few years, we're actually producing the kinds of technology and having the kind of relationships with technology that you saw in an episode that was once science fiction. But to your point about phones, so I studied for about 6 months in London in 2017, and I was actually really excited because lots of people are still reading the paper on the tube. And I just kept telling people in the U.S., like, it's crazy because in London, people are actually reading the paper when they wait for the bus, when they're sitting on the train. And then when I came back, that's when I saw everyone is on their phones. And I was very confused because I don't have reception on the tube. So I'm like, what is everybody looking at? I'm the person with the book because I can't access my internet. So it's almost like, I'm wondering, does everyone have some kind of secret that I don't know about? Or is it that we're, constantly pulling out our phones whenever we have just a little bit of idle time? Every single time you're waiting in a queue, every single time that you have nothing to do, the first thing you do is just to reach for your phone instead of maybe having a conversation with somebody, instead of maybe doing something that might be a little bit more productive with your life. And what are you even looking at? As you said, like, are you just looking at some kind of random game? Are you just scrolling at random, photos on your phone as well? And then to your point about the faces, it's something that I have been thinking about quite a bit, and your point as well, with VR too. So when VR first really came out, I was really freaked out because I went to this VR arcade in New York. I walk in and everyone just looks like, have you guys seen Meet the Robinsons? It's a very throwback Disney film. But basically towards the end, everyone gets kind of like almost possessed by these evil is it called the bowler hat. And they're kind of like put down on your head, and then someone presses a button and the hat kind of like falls over your eyes. And then all of a sudden you're kind of like possessed by this technology, and you just seem kind of soulless. And I looked around and everyone looked like that scene in Meet the Robinsons. Like they looked very vacant, they looked kind of soulless and lifeless, and it kind of scared me. And then I went and got a degree in immersive storytelling, which is basically a degree in VR, so hypocrite.
Okay, I mean, there was loads of things to pull out there because there was kind of the idea about boredom, like we just turn to our phones and we turn to entertainment, information online through boredom.
Bring back boredom.
Bring back boredom. There was a nice point about the newspapers earlier as well, which maybe was touching about what Jamie was saying in the talk about decoupling your phone from these objects. Read a newspaper, not read the news on your phone. Read a book. I mean, where are we going to go from this, guys? I can't dictate this direction of the conversation. We've got some new faces at the table. Are you off? Give us your phone. Come back. Perfect. Mikey.
Yesterday I left my phone at home, and so I didn't have it for 24 hours, which was great for me. But I don't know, I don't know if that's a successful strategy for the world. It's great for individuals, but is it great for the world when all this misinformation, disinformation is out there? If you're not online responding to it, are you just letting those people kind of stew in misinformation?
We've got some final thoughts, I think, maybe, on the table here, yes? And lots of note-taking as well, which is quite exciting, quite analogue. Final thoughts?
Well, yeah, interesting you should draw attention to this because we're trying to promote this idea of the table book. So, you know, we were talking earlier on about getting the phones off the table. See, me and Daniel and I, we both have table books, which is things that we just have on the table to write everything that, when things jump up and you're like, oh, I want to remember that, you know. And it's a way of, I guess, trying to honour that, and also just going back analog, because often people say stuff and you want to remember it, so you get your phone out to write it down, then your fucking phone's out, which is a pain in the arse. So we're really pushing the table book as a new form of technology. It's very small, it fits in your pocket, it's got pages that just feel almost exactly like real paper. It's incredibly lifelike, yeah. It's like an immersive technology, because you can touch it, you can feel it, it's incredible. Just have a feel of that. It almost feels like real paper. So yeah, we're just pushing the table book. But then the last thing I wanted to say was I was reading, I'm listening at the moment to The Anxious Generation by someone or other, forgot, Jonathan Haidt. One of the lines in that which really struck me was, there is a hole in every human heart. You need to be careful what you fill it with, because if you fill it with the wrong stuff, then it fucks you up. So careful with that. That's a good word of warning from Jonathan Haidt.
Brilliant final thought, round of applause. Thank you very much. Well, keep the table. Well, tell us on the notion of the table book. It's great. Did you have a final thought as well?
Ask directions.
Ask for directions.
Ask for directions. Both. But on the road particularly, just ask local people. Ask someone. They don't know if they're local or not. Ask them directions. You're not inconveniencing them, you're conveniencing them. You're making community. People fucking love helping other people. You're giving them an opportunity, and who knows what might happen.
Fantastic. Ask for directions. It might help build community. And I think, Claire, it's your final thought as well. I feel like you're the perfect spokesperson for this.
Well, actually, the final thought is Jess's dad. He died recently, and he has got so many of those books that I have to look at. I mean, he lived to write, and he spoke so well, and I can't bring myself to look at them yet, but yes. And when you write something as you feel it, or you draw something as you feel it, it's almost like a smell. How it comes back, it's so overwhelming and overpowering. So thank you for that.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Have a lovely evening, you guys. Thank you for sharing the TALKAOKE table. If you guys are standing at the bar, you're like, what is this? Come and join us. We've been talking about what your algorithm says about you. We've been talking about anti-social media. Is it public transport? Is it a newspaper? Is it writing things down in a book? We've got some new faces at the table, so I'm just going to do a round of names, starting over here.
I'm Claire.
Mikey.
Kian.
Matilda.
Lindsay.
Miran.
I'm Margot.
We've already done Mikey. And Evie, I'm Evie. I'm sitting in the middle of the table. This is TALKAOKE. It's a pop-up talk show. You guys are in charge. We can go anywhere you want. I know there's a lot of nodding earlier from you, and so Claire, let's hear from you. Any thoughts on what you've just heard? Conversations, anti-social media, how you resolve conflict maybe online. What do you think your algorithm says about you? Does it match your personality? Those are some suggestions, but you can go anywhere with this.
I find my algorithm has actually been helping me find my creativity, and to note on the little books that we've been talking about, I've actually been doing little doodles a lot. So especially in my travels, because I'm from Canada and I came here, I've been jotting down little thoughts, and I've been in my journal, but it's like a journal collective of little drawings and thoughts and experiences and little cute things that people have said to me just to get off my phone and to, and I got that inspiration from social media. I got that from the algorithm, and lots of that from the algorithm that finally pushed me in the direction of getting off of it, which is kind of hilarious.
Okay, so actually maybe the table book has spread more than we've already thought, which is fantastic. Margot, did you have a hand up earlier?
Yeah, it's kind of maybe related a little bit to what you were saying, Claire, because I kind of wondered, when I think about algorithm making it healthier or, just like combat misinformation, it almost feels like I need to be prepared for a battle, you know what I mean? Like it's like quite... I have to be like in the frame of mind to like take something down and like. Whereas maybe there are kind of almost not passive, but like less combative ways of, opting out of your social media completely. That could be like a peaceful way of like stepping out from that vicious cycle. Because I sometimes feel like, because it's so important, so emotionally, I don't want to overuse the word triggering, but so emotionally impactful, how we feel about social media and what it does to us. It almost puts us in this fighting frame. But I wonder whether we can do it peacefully, like, by writing notes and like doing all the kind of old school stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so is it bit too fast and spicy? How do you slow it down a little bit? I'm gonna go over here.
Well, I just want to jump on the creativity thing because I think it's so important. And we were talking about bringing the humanity back into the internet. I think creativity is so important in that, and actually producing things, making things, not consuming things. I think is just like so key to human existence.
And we had a point over here, and then over here.
Well, no, I just think it's genuinely like it's incredible that we've got a whole evening here about the dance timing of a previous presidential environmental campaigner. Algorithm.
It's good. I think there is officially on the TALKAOKE sound pad. Oh, you got a badunch. There is also a wah-wah, but you were the church has spoken. There we go. Take which one you'd like. Lindsay, you had a point.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, this conversation about, could this be a new avenue to help us further explore creativity? But then I'm also thinking with, the rise of AI and then like everything that I see online, I'll see, some beautiful interior design on my Instagram as I do. And it turns out that it's not real. And it kind of takes something, like I get really upset when I find out actually that something's not real. And even though like it might not have been a place that I would have ever entered, for some reason it really does take something away from me, and I feel quite robbed of integrity in that sense. But I would say I had another point that I wanted to make earlier about there's something that Threads does, which is instead of just like leaving, a typed comment in the chat, you can actually leave a kind of like voice memo. So it's like voice notes, but like on social media, which is very interesting because I love voice notes because I think it's like the next best thing to actually having a phone call with the person. It's a lot more, I think it's a way that we can make social media a bit more human, but also because I think when we have disagreements with people and things get misinterpreted so easily when things are typed out, but then if you actually just hear someone saying it out loud for some reason, it can kind of help de-escalate things. It can kind of help add a bit more nuance, a bit more meaning. And I find it really interesting that I think Threads is probably one of the first platforms I've ever seen where someone can like literally leave a comment making a point, and they say it in a way that's kind of like, a bit funny, a bit lighter than, it may read in, when it's written down, and then it kind of helps to de-escalate the conversation.
Okay, so maybe even the heard voice, listened voice of a stranger might help tackle misinformation by giving that nuance and giving that span. And more real. Fantastic. A great point. I had a point over here and a point behind me.
I was going back to what you were saying about how you get angry when you realize that something you see something and you think it's cool and it's been created by AI. But I just wanted to throw the question out there: has anyone ever taken credit for something that AI has ever done without disclosing it?
We're here at TALKAOKE, we always like to throw the question back at the asker. So have you?
Yeah, well, yeah. Tell us about Matilda. It's fairly fair. It was a work email which I sent out and which I used AI to kind of help, keep it professional and downplay some things. And then I got some feedback, which was, wow, what a great email. And then I just felt, okay, it was a good email, but...
Any final thoughts from our fantastic Act 1?
You're all very, very clever and attractive, so frankly, fuck it.
Is it true? Is it misinformation? I don't know, but we liked it. We were entertained by it. I like this. So Matilda posed Thank you very much. A round of applause for you as well, if we can find it, which is always hard for that. Matilda asked a question, have you ever taken credit for that something that AI made as your own creativity? I'm going to leave that out there. Margot got a point, and then because it is 5 to 10, I'm going to have to start doing final thoughts from everyone, which is very sad, but it's all right because we're going to have a great time anyway.
No, I was just wondering about, because I think Sophia's book is something about the killing of the language or something. What's the title of her book? I forgot. It was something about language being killed or something. Was it? How to kill a language? Yeah, right. So we don't want to misinform, but I know there's language and kill something. Obviously, I haven't read the book yet, but I'm just interested because this morning I saw something on social media which was Donald Trump. It's a video of Donald Trump commenting on Joe Biden being diagnosed with cancer. I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't even know he was diagnosed. And I scrolled back on the BBC. It was few posts down, which was just a photo of Joe Biden and little kind of note about that. And I thought, oh, isn't that interesting that the real important information, because it was with a photo and just written text, I completely missed. But what I'm getting is just yet again the yellow face of Donald Trump commenting on that. And I just think the spoken word, because you were talking about voice notes, I'm thinking, spoken word can sometimes be really good, but sometimes it can just kind of take us away from the real core of the message. I don't know.
No, it was perfect. There was a lot for us to bounce off on. I'm aware that we have to do final thoughts because we're getting close to wrapping up. So I'm going to start over here with Claire. Final thoughts on any of the thoughts that have come up on the table tonight, or something new you want to throw into the final bit of discussion?
I think that on the discussion of the whole night about algorithm and learning more about it to be able to protect yourself and using it as a tool instead of destruction, and making it benefit you, I think is a really good thing that I think we can all kind of use to our own advantage and strategize for, and I think that's a really good thing to start doing for everyone. Yeah.
Slowly kind of trying to take back control. I'm going to go for final thoughts. Final thoughts over here. Final thoughts over here.
Well, number one, I'm very upset that my joke didn't get more appreciation before. Algorithm is genius. Other than that, my final thoughts are VPN.
VPN. Okay, so a little bit of advice around the table. Is that to get a VPN? Get a VPN. There we go.
What is a VPN?
It's a virtual network that protects your data from people being able to trace where you are, when you are. So your algorithms become a little bit less dangerous.
Any final thoughts over here? That's okay. You know what? I'll pause it there. Any sort of first and final thoughts?
Well, like she was saying, I think voice notes are quite a good thing because you can't get pissed off with a voice note. Whereas if you see something written down, you can be like, what the fuck did he mean by that? Blah, blah, blah. You can get pissed off by it, but voice notes are difficult to get wrong.
Okay, perfect. Lovely. Any final thoughts over here? No final thoughts over here. At the moment, a silent voice note, but we can change that.
As her friend, I want to say I have mixed feelings about voice notes. I love them when they come from her, but in general, as a rule, it will take a few hours extra to get back to you if it's a voice note.
Okay, so voice notes are a slower form of communication, but I don't know how people feel about that, perhaps.
So I've had lots of friends get upset with me for using voice notes, but then I have to explain to them I use them for access reasons. So I have reduced mobility on the dominant side of my body because I was paralyzed. So I told them I don't mind waiting 2 months for you to reply to me. I don't care. No, I don't. Yes, sometimes I'll take it. I really don't care because sometimes I literally physically can't do it. And so, but some people really do get angry if voice notes are left. Voice notes can also be quite harmful though, because I have with my old agent that I fired afterwards. He knows how to leave an abusive voice note, so it can be used to also get across anger even more effectively, any kind of emotion more effectively, more transparently. But my final point is that I think that social media media can actually be used in a good way if we know how to do it properly. As in, like, you know, can I curate my algorithm to show me things like, you know, AP, writers, you know, different kinds of trusted sources. But then at the same time, I like to think that I can do a good job of giving myself the right algorithm. I could be totally guilty of causing the problem myself, and I think that we need to also kind of like get over ourselves, be a bit more humble, and realize even if you think that you're doing the right thing and you actually make an effort, you're still contributing to the problem, and we have to kind of like do an algorithm audit.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I've got one more final thought over here, if you have one, very quickly.
You can't escape the algorithm.
You can't escape the algorithm. I'm afraid that is our time, guys. I'm so sad. Oh, Mikey, I'm sorry. One final thought from Mikey. Final thought from Mikey over here.
Oh, oops. I'm just going to say very quickly, we did a ritual to heal the internet in the other room. I felt we made progress somehow, but it still needs time for me. Maybe I'm going to be waking up in the middle of the night, probably writing it down on my phone, what it all means. So I think it has to be a kind of unknown, and sometimes we're in the space of the unknown, and we have to maybe think about it. That's a very vague and indistinct final thought, but there you go.
That's what we like to hear. Thank you everyone for coming tonight, to TALKAOKE, to Act 1, to Act 2, to the whole series by Sage and Jester, with Intelligence Squared, with The People Speak, which is us, TALKAOKE. If you liked it, come and grab a card. I want to say thank you to everyone from the People Speak team, everyone from Sage and Jester, everyone from Intelligence Squared. Thank you to the lovely, lovely bar staff as well. They've been absolutely fantastic, and the Pleasance Theatre. And one more.
And let's have a huge round of applause for Evie in the middle.